Hi, everybody. There we go, recording in progress. Thanks, everybody, for turning up today and attending this summer school workshop with me. My name is Dan Kelby, and I am a freelance character designer and a NUA graduate, as Tom mentioned, and I'm also a part-time lecturer on the animation course. So today we're going to be doing some character design, designing some characters from inanimate objects, which is a really cool way to kickstart some of your design processes. I'm going to be working in Photoshop, which is what I tend to work in most of the time. Feel free to work in Procreate or any other digital program that you might have, or you can work on pencil and paper if you've got some of that too. You just have to look at some of the reference images on the Padlet board that Tom mentioned, just to sort of get your basic shapes down to start with. So before we do anything, I'm just going to do a very quick background slideshow, amazing, about who I am and what I do. So let's just do that there. We can all see that, can't we?
Yeah, we can see that.
Cool, thank you very much. Right, so my name's Dan. As I said, I am a freelance character designer and NUA lecturer, which is a really fun job that I sort of fell into a few years ago. What I tend to do, apart from that, is I work for clients such as these. Whoops, can you see my, sorry, Tom, can you see my thing here, my video here?
Yeah, we can see your slides still.
You can't see the video down, the picture of me down the side, can you?
No, I can't see the picture of you.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Okay, I can just see that.
Sorry.
Right. So here are some of my clients that I've worked for recently. I've worked for Netflix on a show called Dead End Paranormal Park, which came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did some stuff for Disney TV Animation, some work on a TV show that never went anywhere, sadly. So I can't show any work from that. Cartoon Network. I worked on a show called Apple and Onion, which was a show that ran for a couple of years, I think, a few years ago. I did some kids illustration for a Star Wars book, and I worked for a studio in London called Passion. I do quite a lot of work with them on advertising work, pitch work for clients, TV adverts, little TV spots, things like that. And N-Wave are a studio in Belgium that I've just worked for on a movie called Chicken Hair and the Hamster of Darkness, which has just come out on Netflix as well. It came out about 3 weeks ago, I think. Just a very quick background about me, because a lot of people ask me how I got to where I am and how I get into the industry and all that sort of thing. So that's my amazing graduation photo, which everybody always loves seeing, and I always put into my presentations. I graduated from NUA in 2002, so quite a long time ago now. And this was back when the animation course was folded into graphic design. Now it's a separate course, animation and VFX. So you can take that for the whole 4 years if you come in on year 0. I graduated in 2002, and then I got my first job for a graphic design company in 2004. In between those 2 years, I just worked a lot of kind of service jobs in shops and bars and things. And then in 2014, so 10 years later, I left that company after being a graphic designer. I worked my way up to senior creative designer. And in the interim period, I didn't do any drawing whatsoever. I just kind of, after graduation, just kind of fell out of love with art and didn't do any drawing, and I really regret that. So if anybody falls into a similar situation as me, please keep drawing all the time, because I've missed out on 10 years of drawing practice, which, as all of you artists know, is a long time to build skills and things. So yeah, I definitely regret doing that. So please keep drawing whatever you do. 2014 to now has been my freelance career. So I switched gears completely from graphic design. I fell back in love with art. Trained myself up on the internet through lots of tutorials and things about how to do pre-production art and character design. So I've always loved to draw funny characters. My first few jobs in 2016, I worked for a games company doing some sort of promotional art, and then I worked for a company called Pilot Studio doing the Star Wars kids book. That was my first professional illustration job. So I didn't immediately go into the animation industry. I went from graphics to illustration to animation. So it's not always a straight shot. That was the first year that I attended my first animation conference in America, which I'll talk to you about in a second. 2017, Cartoon Network job I got on Apple and Onion, which I'll show you some artwork from in a moment. I also got my first animation job for a company called Prime Focus, just a little bit part on a film. 2018, I worked for Disney, and then I went back to Los Angeles for the second time to the conference that I've just mentioned. I'll talk about that in a sec. 2019 was when I started work on Chicken Hair, which has only just come out, so that should give you an idea about how long these films get taken to make. And 2020 was when I started to work for Blink Inc., who are basically the company that I made Dead End Paranormal Park with in partnership with Netflix. And that's when I started teaching at the university on the animation course. And as you'll see along the bottom there, between 2014 and 2019, I was actually still working part-time freelance as a graphic designer, just to get money while I could train online and sort of fill the gaps in my freelance work, because freelance work is very kind of up and down. You know, you're not working constantly. You might get a job for a month, you might get a job for 6 months, and then you might not get a job for another month after that. So you have to kind of save your money and make sure that you're good at kind of budgeting and all that sort of thing. I work in Photoshop and Procreate mainly. Photoshop, I'd say probably over 90% of the time, and then Procreate for sketching and stuff, just so I love the Apple Pencil, and it feels a lot more natural to me than sketching in Photoshop. Just a few bits of artwork from the stuff that I've worked on. So Apple and Onion was my first TV show. Here's some production artwork from that. So it's a lot of sort of turnarounds of characters. I'd be given a 3/4 view of the character, like the coffee cup at the top there, that coloured image of him, the second one in from the left, and then I'd have to do all the other views, those just line artwork views, and doing lots of things like eye charts and blinks and brows and stuff, and some keyframes for animation, because obviously it gets sent off overseas, and they work from sheets like this to do the in-between keyframes. A few sort of, that one on the bottom, the bacon one there, is just a keyframe from the actual production that I had to sort of colour up. More sequencing stuff. This was a bit when the bacon character basically jumped in the air, turned around, greased up one of the characters, and then pushed them down the street, which is brilliant. Never thought I'd end up doing something like that. Sometimes I do prop work as well, so that's what these things are from. Chicken Hair has just come out on Netflix. Like I said, this was the one that I worked on for a Belgian studio. Incidentally, all this stuff I did from my house in the UK. I didn't go to any studios or anything like that. I freelance from my home with the internet and, you know, digital artwork and FTP sites and Skype calls and things. It's really easy to be employed and not be in the actual studio. So that's great for anybody who can't afford to move overseas or you know, relocate after graduation. So concept art for this, you know, there's one of the frames from the movies in the top right hand side there when the main character's a baby. So I had to design the character as a baby and figure out how he was going to sit. There's some poses for one of the main characters on the bottom there. She was a skunk who does like kung fu and stuff. This is a lot of what the job is as a character designer. There's a lot of designing costumes, just presenting concepts for the art direction team, for them to sort of pick from. Looking at lots of reference, you know, that's a big part of the job too, so that all your designs are authentic. Here's just some rough designs and poses for one of the sort of enemy characters. I had to design some hamsters that are ghosts, and I thought about, you know, they could have transparent bodies, and then I had to figure out how a hamster skeleton would fit inside of a body. You know, little things like that people don't realise is part of the job. A lot of costume design, so I had to design the character as a 5-year-old and then think about different costumes that he could wear. Lots of nightwear on the bottom there. Again, more research into old sort of like Victorian style costumes. Figure out how the character's ears fit under the hat, you know, how the clothing looks when it's layered onto the character. Designing pygmies, amazing. The bottom row here, they're all based on particular shapes, which is the kind of sort of thing that we're going to be touching on today in the workshop, because shapes have different languages and different languages give you different emotions as a viewer. This is something that has just aired on Netflix. This is something that I worked on for about 3 months. It's called Dead End Paranormal Park, about haunted amusement park. So a lot of kind of concepts as well for characters, background characters, costuming. I did a lot of turnarounds. Lots of technical stuff on this show because it's all to do with rigs and animation. So all the characters are basically built on top of 5 different body archetypes, and then they're kind of like a dress-up doll. All the heads and the costumes are all swapped out to make new characters to save on like time and budget. Some concept stuff, like this was an episode where 3 of the characters had to fight some demons, and they found all this stuff in the lost property box. So I had to come up with some funky outfits for them that were like kind of like slapped together. Did a few keyframes for this. At the top there, you've got the animatic, like the rough storyboards that I have to work from, and sort of tidy up that shot, if you like, with the character and make sure it stays on model, which means that it looks like the design, you know, is consistent throughout the show. Little keyframe of Pugsley, all sad and kind of pretty ill looking there, actually. That was a fun one to do. So that's just some stuff that I've done. Just some really quick stuff about networking. Again, this goes back to how to get into the industry. There's 3 conferences: CTNX, Lightbox, and Annecy. They happen at different times throughout the year. I've been to CTNX, twice. That's the one in Los Angeles, which is some photos from here. So it's like an animation expo. There's a big tent outside of this hotel, and it's got like an artist alley, a bit like you've seen at probably Comic-Con and stuff like that. You can go and buy artist prints, and you can get portfolio reviews at studios like Disney, Nickelodeon, and DreamWorks. Have professionals look over your work, which is really helpful. They have like life drawing sessions outside. It's really cool. It's really funky, kind of upbeat, really inspiring atmosphere. You know, maquettes and talks. Like on the left-hand side there, you've got Ian McCaig, who directed Darth Maul. Who created Darth Maul. You've got Corey Loftus, who was the character art director on Zootopia. You know, you have little panels like that where people ask artists questions. You meet loads of great new friends and play Cards Against Humanity in the hotel lobby, like we did. You buy loads of artists' books and sketchbooks and things that you can't get anywhere else, and prints. It's amazing. You get to go to Disneyland, which is what I did. On the right-hand side there, there's me and 3 of my friends that are all character designers and background artists. They all came over from the UK. When I was working for Disney, that happened to coincide with the second time that I went to CTNX, and my director took me to the Disney studios and gave me a tour, which was amazing. So I got to go onto the Disney lot and look at the animation building and everything, and it was like dream come true. Didn't want to come home. Just some quick advice. Keep learning and making new work. Obviously, that's super important. Don't stand still, don't stagnate. Always be drawing. Remember I said I didn't draw for 10 years? Well, definitely don't do that. Always keep drawing, even if it's just a sketch a day. Try and maintain an online portfolio. Use social media to your benefit. Like I use Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Tumblr, ArtStation, and Behance. I've had jobs from ArtStation. That's where I got Chicken Hair from. Instagram is where I got Disney from. LinkedIn is where I got my Star Wars illustration jobs from, and a few games jobs. So try different social media accounts and see which ones sort of fit your style, because each one's different. Keep your portfolio updated, always be making new work, and it is just a lot of kind of repeating steps 1 to 4, and just kind of like luck does play a part of it, but you know what's luck? It's preparation meets opportunity, right? So you always want to be drawing, you always want to be prepared, you always want to be putting yourself out there. I know it's quite scary, but that's the only way that people are going to see your work. So it's all about staying positive, being yourself, like try and develop your own style if you can. I'll talk about that a little bit later towards the end of the workshop. Always be hungry to learn more stuff. You know, you've got YouTube, you've got Schoolism, you've got things like this, you know, books, podcasts, you know, you can learn loads of stuff all the time with the internet. So you can always improve. I mean, I'm always taking courses and things. I'm always trying to improve my art through practice and learning new skills. Do great work and be great to work with. You know, the industry is quite small, so you know you do get a reputation for being good to work with, and then hopefully that leads to repeat jobs. And never give up. Like it took me a few years as you sort of start to sort of get to this stage. So it will happen. Some people it will happen for you straight out of college. Some people it will happen for you a couple of years later, and that's completely fine. Like everybody's got their own journey and their own pace, right? And just very quickly, some resources. I have put these slides on the Padlet, these last few ones, so don't worry if you don't see all these books, I'm going to go quite quick. These are just some character design fundamental books that I think are really good. In that bottom right hand corner, there's one about gesture drawing, which I think is fundamental to good posing and character design. Fundamental art books that I think everybody should have about perspective and animal drawing, life drawing, how to draw heads and hands and things, production design for animation, composition, digital painting. And I also have a load of art books for, you know, movies and TV shows, because it's always great to look at the production artwork, especially if you want to work in character design or visual development, because you don't get to see all this stuff on screen. This is all the work that goes into what you see on screen, right? And it's always such a shame that people don't see it. Here are some other places online that you can learn from, although, you know, we obviously would love you all to come to anyway and work from and learn from us, but I know that some people don't live in this country who are watching. Yeah, so there's loads of stuff online, which is going back to what I said earlier about always be learning, right? So that's just a very quick presentation. So let's get some drawing done, right? Because that's where all the fun happens. Right, where are we? Okay, so can you see my Photoshop?
Yep.
Cool. Here we go. Right. So the first thing that I like to do, like I say, I work in Photoshop. Feel free to work in Procreate. or whatever digital thing you have. What I like to do, first of all, is just sort of start to just like get my arm moving, do some wavy lines, do some scribbles. And when I'm doing this, I'm drawing from my shoulder. A lot of people, they put their hand on the paper and then they try and draw with their wrist, which is good for small detail. But when we're doing things like this, it's nice to sort of pivot at the shoulder or the elbow and pull the pen or pencil around the paper or page, just to sort of loosen up, do some scribbles. That's cool. We can do some of those. And I like to sometimes make 2 marks on the page and then try and pull a line between them. This will improve your line quality and your sort of hand-eye coordination. So we can go from top to bottom. We can go from left to right. We can go from right to left. And try and do it in one stroke as well if you can. This will also develop your confidence, because a lot of people I see, a lot of students especially, you know, they do lines like this. You know, they, instead of doing one straight line, confident line, they'll kind of, you know, like hatch at it like that. And then that just, I don't know, when you look at it, it gives you a different vibe. It makes you feel more hesitant, I think. So drawing for me is all about confidence and making like definitive statements. One other thing you can do is you can just draw circles of varying sizes. Again, this will sort of improve your hand-eye coordination. I'm going from right to left because I'm right-handed, but I can also switch it up and go anti-clockwise, I suppose. Try it that way. Do some ellipses. One other good thing you can do is you can make a shape like this, and then you can try and sort of expand it out, a bit like ripples on a pond, or like a sort of, you know, the old cartography maps. That can help you develop sort of consistency. If you try and keep the lines in equal spacing apart and do it all in one go, that can be quite a good warm-up. Anyway, so those are just some little exercises that I tend to do at the start of the day when I'm warming up. So if you look on the Padlet, I'm just going to do a very quick caricature, which isn't the main bulk of the workshop. What we're going to do is we're going to be designing characters from objects. But seeing as I'm a character designer and I can design everything from a main character to background characters, a lot of the job is designing background characters, right? So it helps for me to be able to draw people and animals and pretty much anything. I love practicing with people because I love drawing portraits and I just like drawing faces. So something like this, who I think is Mark Rylance, the actor. And there's also another reference that I put on the Padlet of a girl sort of face on looking at the camera. So either one of those you can pick if you want to follow along with me now. I like to sort of break these down in my head and then just do a quick sort of cartoon of them, just to practice drawing faces and seeing if I can take the reference and like change it as I'm drawing it. Like I'm not trying to do an exact copy of this. So I tend to just start with like a circle for the head. So, you know, that represents the main part of the cranium. Even though people's heads from the side, the skull is like an ellipse shape. It's not perfectly round, but for the purposes of this, we shall go round. And then we've got a nice sort of angle coming down here, like a curve for the front of the face. So I'll pull that down like this. And then the jawbone is going to go back up there like that. So let's connect that up with a straight. And then the jaw sort of connects up like that. And for the ear, I tend to just like do an oval shape because we're going to put the ear inside that. And then we've got like, so his sideburns are coming down in a sort of shape like this. And then, whoops, you know, there's like an arc like that, right? So we're going to put that on here like this. The hat is basically an oval or an ellipse going around his head. And it's really important when we draw things like that, that we draw through the shape. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people when they draw things, they'll if they draw something that goes behind something else, they'll stop, right? So let's say that you've got, I don't know, that's a leg. Bear with me, folks, that's a leg. And then you want to draw something going behind it, like let's say that the character is wearing, I don't know, a cape. And it's coming down here, and then it's coming behind the leg, and then it's going to go behind it. So what a lot of people do is they'll stop drawing there, and then they'll sort of try and carry it on there. And you can see that these two lines, they don't really line up properly, so it looks a bit broken. So what I would do is I would draw it straight through, and then I would erase out the part that I don't want. And then you know that these two lines here are guaranteed to be connected. And that's basically what I'm talking about when I'm talking about drawing through the hat. So rather than, you know, drawing it like this and stopping there, I'm going to draw the whole thing because I just want to make sure that it's going to line up, even though we're not going to see that part of it. So it's the brim. So there we go. So I'm drawing through, and then I'm just going to erase out in here. So now I know that that hat definitely connects up. The head kind of lines up with the front of the hat there, doesn't it? Like this, like see. So that's a good visual cue to look for if you're drawing something like this from an angle. I always try and look at how things connect to each other. So let's carry on the head to the top of the hat there. And this is sort of in line with the ear-ish. There we go. Like I say, I'm going quite quickly because I've got a lot of stuff to cover today, folks. Right.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask, while you're doing this, and it's awesome, by the way, and it's going really well, but I just wanted to check, materials, resources wise, I know you mentioned it a little bit before, but what are the best things that you recommend working with for people that are joining us for this sort of activity?
Well, obviously, I'm working digitally, so if you do have access to a digital program, that is always sort of preferable. It's not essential, like don't feel bad if you don't have Photoshop or if you don't have Procreate or anything like that, because not everybody has access to that sort of stuff. If you were working on pencil or paper, I would just say to have the reference sort of up on the screen, or if you have a printer at home, if you were to do this exercise yourself, it'd be good to print out the reference, and then you can draw over the top of it, like you can draw these shapes over the top like I've done on the left hand side here, and that will help you to understand what the image is made up of, and then you can then start to sort of break it down and stretch things out and have a play with it. But I mean, honestly, anything, like there are character designers in the industry that just work on pencil and paper. There's a guy called Nico Marley who works for DreamWorks, who did a lot of stuff on like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon and things like that, and he just works in color pencil, I think, and ink and things. So you don't, for those of you out there who don't have anything digital, or who are sort of like, don't have the same sort of gear as a lot of people, like, don't despair. It's the main thing is that you're drawing, right? And to be honest, a lot of people, myself included, they get a little bit too used to digital stuff, and then they get scared of making mistakes. And when it comes to just sort of like drawing on a sketch pad or something, or a post-it note, it's they freeze up because they don't want to make a mistake because there's no undo button, right? So there's a really good argument to be made for learning and still drawing traditionally, I think, even though the industry is a digital industry, there's no escaping it. I still think traditional has its place, and I think that it teaches you a lot of certainly a lot of fine motor skills. Like, one of the things that I find is that just as a little sort of aside, when people want to draw detail on a digital piece, right, instead of staying zoomed out like I am now and drawing like something really small like this, they'll zoom all the way in, until it's 8,000% tall, and then they don't have to draw it small, right? They can just draw it large, and then when they zoom out, it's small. Do you see what I mean? So a lot of people, I think, if they do fall back on the crutch of doing digital too much or only digital, when it comes to fine detail, and let's say they have to switch to traditional for whatever reason, they might be a bit stuck because they won't have developed those kind of physical skills. For example, like my friend Amy is a background artist, and she's just got a job working on SpongeBob SquarePants, which is great, painting backgrounds, and they want them to do her traditionally in gouache paint, right? And I was amazed at that, because I thought, oh, surely it's all going to be digital, right? It's all going to be done in Photoshop. But she has to do them traditionally, which is brilliant, because she loves painting traditionally as part of her practice. She's a digital artist, she's a digital background artist, but she also paints traditionally, and she goes out and paints plein air. She goes and takes an easel and paints outside and paints trees and things, and she knows how paint works, which means that when she has to do a job like SpongeBob SquarePants, she's all of a sudden, she's not caught out, and they ask her to do it digitally. They ask her to do it traditionally, and then she's like, oh no, I can't do it traditionally, I can only do it digitally. So there's certainly, room for both, I think.
I think that's really reassuring to hear. I just wanted to ask as well, just a slight technical question. Like, I can see that the time for the warm up is slightly moving on, but I'm really intrigued to know what brushes you're using in Photoshop as well.
Okay.
Choose that.
Don't worry, Tom. I've got my eye on the time. Don't worry. I've got it covered. Don't worry.
Sweet, great.
It's cool. So this is the brush that I'm using is by a guy called Dylan Tunachat. If you Google his name, the brush is called Graphite 3 Tilt, and it's basically it emulates a pencil. And in Photoshop, that's really good because it, as you can see, if I make my cursor big, when I move my pen round, you can see that the tip changes in terms of like the angle that my pencil's moving. So it's really good because it emulates what a normal pencil does in real life, you know, when you tilt your hand and things. So certainly recommend those brushes. They are paid brushes. They're about, but they're not that much. I think they're on Gumroad. You can get them for Procreate as well. And he actually does a bundle where it comes with the Photoshop and the Procreate versions, which is the one that I got. So it's really good value. I think it's about £15 or something. So I always think that, you know, you should support artistic creators, and because I don't know how to make brushes, and so I get the benefits of people that do. And yeah, I think that Photoshop, a lot of the default brushes in there are actually pretty good, because there's an artist called Kyle T. Webster who used to sell brushes, and he's now been employed by Adobe, who make Photoshop, and his brushes come with a Photoshop subscription as part of the price. So you can actually get all of his brushes for free, which are really good. The one that I'm going to use in the session in a second, the ink brush, is one of his. So yeah, those are worth getting as well. I mean, again, like, I'm biased towards Photoshop because it's the program that I learned digital art on. But you know, there are other options out there. There's one called Clip Studio Paint that I'm sure that everybody watching is familiar with. There's Procreate. There's one called Sketchbook Pro. There's Critter, although that is a PC only one, I do believe. That's Krita. So I'm a Mac user, so I can't try that one out, but apparently that's really good. I think it's free as well. Yes, all this good old Kensington paper. Oops.
Yeah. Quality, and it's worth mentioning that so at Norwich University of the Arts, we have the Adobe Suite for free for our students to access on campus, or for personal use on their own laptops and other machines. But other universities may well do the same as well to make it a bit more accessible and achievable. I've forgotten the next thing I was going to say, but oh no, just remembered. If anyone has any questions for Dan, please pop them into the chat, and we'll look to ask those as we go through the session.
Definitely.
So yeah, it'd be good to hear what you're thinking, guys.
Right. Cheers. Yeah, I am just finishing this up now, so I'm going to move to the meat and potatoes part of the session. So yeah, I mean, this is just a quick warm. Like I say, I'm not going for a likeness when I do this sort of exercise. It's more about playing with proportion and things, and sometimes I like to use the lasso tool and just sort of like you know, select things and use the transform tool and like move chins up and down and things. It's amazing how much difference you can make to a character's face just by moving like the features around, you know, like moving the lip closer to the nose and things gives him a more pudgy appearance, and you know, maybe making his nose a different shape, you know, like this shape, just changing the angle of that, you know, it gives him a completely different feel, and it's pulling away from the reference that we've got here, and it's looking like, you know, a bit of a different person. I could change the hat up, I could give him glasses, you know, there's loads of different things we can do, but we shan't do any more on him because, you know, we're done. So characters from objects. I'm just gonna have a cup of tea, 1 second. Character design, a lot of it is based around shape language and silhouette. Silhouette is to do with obviously readability. You need your characters to be recognizable from a distance, especially if you're designing for things like video games, you know, when the characters might be quite small. One good way to kickstart your ideas is to find an interesting object and try and design a character from that. It's a really fun exercise to do. It teaches you how to see the potential in shape and silhouette. So on the Padlet board, there are, I think, about 10 images of things that I put up there for all of you to have a little look at and to pick from to use as a basis for your character design. I'm going to use this vase here because I thought it was an interesting shape. I love the colours. Try and pick objects that you kind of, you know, are interested in, or that you have a relationship with, or, you know, they give you a little spark. So the way that I do this is that I just, first of all, I just trace the object. And I know that tracing is a dirty word to some people, but honestly, it's just like, sometimes it's the quickest way to do something. And in the world of animation, especially TV production, time is money, right? So every single cheat that you have been told or encouraged not to do is usually something that you're encouraged to do when you're working on a production. And I don't mean everything, obviously, like you never copy anybody's work and then pass it off as your own. But, you know, there are things that I did on Dead End. You know, I was recycling parts of characters. It was like, oh, for this new character, take the hand off this old character and just make it a bit smaller, you know, things like that, because that saves time and money rather than redrawing everything from scratch. Just what I did just then, sorry, is I'm going to use the symmetry tool in Photoshop just to make this even quicker. There is one in Procreate, and there probably is one in Clip Studio as well. The way that you do that is you have the brush tool selected. By the way, don't worry if your Photoshop looks different to mine. I've put all my panels on the right because I'm right-handed, so it's just easy for me to access them all in one place rather than having to keep crossing over my body and having panels on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you have the brush tool selected, which is B, the keyboard shortcut, you'll see at the top here there's a little butterfly icon that appears, and then if you click that and you select vertical, that'll give you a vertical line of symmetry, which I've already got on here, and then whatever I draw on the left-hand side gets replicated on the right, which is brilliant for doing sort of like front views of characters on a turnaround, because it's just super quick. Like you only have to draw half the image, because as you can see, the brush is also being replicated on the right-hand side. So I'm just tracing this, literally tracing the little.
And while you're tracing, I've got a few questions.
Cool.
Is that all right to ping them over?
Yeah.
So the first one is from Shirin, and thank you for that, and apologies if I pronounced your name incorrectly. But could you elaborate a bit more on proportions? I struggle when it comes to getting it right.
Yeah. In terms of proportions, that's a really good question, because it's one of the things that I find that people sort of fall down on. I find that proportion is really important in a character, because a lot of people naturally, they tend to stack their characters in even proportions. So for example, let's just say that like you've got the head of the character, and then you've got the body of the character, and then you've got the leg of the character, you know, and it ends up looking a bit like a snowman, right? So the best thing that you can do is that you can think about like small, medium, and large shapes and split your character up into that. Just 3 different size shapes will give you a really good starting point. So, you know, you could do a tiny body, a tiny head, a medium body, and then like super long legs. Whoops, my Photoshop is just beach ball in 1 second. So, you know, that could be one character. So there's the legs. Or you could do like a really big head, a really tiny body, and then like super long legs. Or you could do, I don't know, a medium-sized head, a massive body, and then like tiny little legs, you know. And switching those proportions about can really help you suddenly come up with interesting bases for your characters. Another way of thinking about it is like Morse code. So you've got like dots and dashes, right? And you can sort of randomize those. So you can have like dot for the head, 2 dashes for the body, you know, maybe a long head, that for the body, that middle part there, and you know, things like this. You just sort of randomize them. I don't know, dot, dot, dash, and then allocate those to different body parts and change the lengths of them as well. That can help you give a good starting point for a character too. When you look at your sort of favorite character designs, you'll see that a lot of them do have really interesting proportions, and it's something that people forget about. Like a lot of people attribute proportion to like head height, like this character is 8 heads tall and all that sort of stuff. But to me, it's more about the relationship between the different sections of the body, and that goes for animal characters too, or aliens or whatever. So consciously try and use small, medium, and large shapes and create a hierarchy within the character.
It's really
design.
cool.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you, mate. Sorry, I've got some more questions, but I don't want to stop your flow.
I can draw and talk at the same time. I'll just update you. So I've traced the vase. I've just duplicate that layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as the basis for my character's body. So I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm just going to squash it in. I'm using the transform tool, by the way, which in Photoshop is Command T is the shortcut. Yeah, and then you'll see what I'm about to do here. Actually, I'll do it over here. So yeah, sorry, you can ask away another question if you desire.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Dan. So we've got a brilliant question from Jessica. Okay. How do you deal with feelings of self-doubt and failure around your work?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's really interesting because I think that as artists, sorry, just before I answer that, what I'm going to do now is you'll see, just so I can give you a bit of context what I'm doing. I'm using the lasso tool, which is L on the keyboard in Photoshop. And I've shrunk the vase down, I've squashed it in because to me it looks like a sort of lady's body. and the top of it reminds me of like a hair bun. So I'm going to turn this into a female character, and I'm just going to separate this hair bun out and move it up, and just move this part here down for the shoulders, but you'll see what I'm going to do. I think that, to be honest, like, you never fully lose that feeling of not so much inadequacy, but a lot of times you get what's called imposter syndrome, which is, you know, when you feel like, am I even good enough to do this job? You know, and I still feel like that sometimes. I mean, like, there's so many people out there that are better at this job than me, right? And when I got my Disney job, I was happy as Larry, as you can imagine. But also, you know, there was a lot of fear that came with that, because I was thinking like, well, oh God, you know, what if I mess it up? And why have they hired me over like, I don't know, 100 other people out there, if not more, that are better at this job than I am? And you know, am I going to mess it up? What happens if they don't like my work, and all that sort of thing? And honestly, like, that's a lot of your self-doubt, which comes from any number of places. But the only way to sort of to rectify that is to just sort of, honestly, it's kind of like a face your fears situation. When I worked on Apple and Onion, I'd never worked on a TV show before. And so I obviously was panicking. I was thinking like, oh no, what happens if, like, I don't know how this works? Like, what happens if they send me loads of stuff and I don't know what to do? And I had a friend that I met at a convention who was an art director, and I asked her, I was like, oh, you know, I've got this job, I don't really know what to do. And she gave me a few pointers. And to be honest, like, you know, I was honest with my art directors that employed me. You know, I sort of said, you know, this is my first gig, and, you know, I've got a few questions, and they were fine about it. Everybody in the industry is really friendly. And like I say, it's a small industry. I'd done a test for the show, so they knew that I could do the job, and that kind of gave me a confidence boost, because what happens is you get a, not every time, but you get asked to test out the shows, you know, just to check that you can actually do the job that you say you can do, and that you're going to be a good fit for it, right? So I had to test for that job. I had a week to do some sort of assignments, if you like, for Apple and Onion. And you know, at the end of it, they said, yes, we want to employ you. So obviously that gave me a bit of a boost, because they wouldn't hire me if I wasn't the right person for the job, because, you know, they're not going to hire somebody that not going to hire and pay somebody that they don't think can do it. So that gave me a good confidence boost. And I think just the best way to do it as well is just to try and get feedback from people, and talk to professionals if you can in the industry, and make friends with peers, and you know, critique others' work, and get used to sort of you have to get used to rejection, because as a character designer, it's really part of the job, you know, and that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. It's really easy. And when I used to send stuff off for approval, or notes as they're called, which is feedback from art directors, you know, initially I would get really kind of bummed out if they came back, because what happens is that you send all your designs off to somebody, and then it just comes back with loads of red pen all over it, digital red pen. You know, can you make this bigger? Can you take the head off this character and put it on this one? Can you get this costume and put it on this one? I don't think this is really working. Can we try something else? You know, nothing upsetting, but as an artist, you can't help but take that personally, because it's like, oh my God, it's like they didn't like my artwork, they didn't like my design. And at the end of the day, you just have to remember that it is a business, and ultimately you're all working towards the same goal, right? You're all, whether you're in a studio or whether you're a freelancer, the whole idea is to make the show, or make the movie, or make the game. And as part of that process, it just involves redoing a lot of things. I mean, if you've ever watched any of these documentaries on Disney Plus and stuff about how these movies get made, you know, they take like 3 or 4 years to get made, and they go through about 4 or 5 different versions, and things get changed. And like, I remember when I was working on Chicken Hair, I spent 2 weeks designing a character, and then it just got cut from the script, you know, and that was just part of it. And that wasn't because they didn't like my design. That was just because the script changed, and I had to live with it. And that's just how it is. It's and that was nothing against my design. That's just, you know, the way that things go.
I think it's really interesting when you get to university as well. A lot of developing your practice and your work is sharing it with other people and getting feedback from others. And you get to a stage sometimes where it's kind of frustrating when you don't get some sort of critique, some sort of feedback, some sort of guidance to give you an idea of whether you're doing something right or not.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's how we learn, right? We learn through feedback, and we learn, you know, and more importantly, we learn through failure. And that's nothing against you as an artist. It's like, why would you want to be perfect at everything right off the bat? Like, where's the fun in that? And I get stuff wrong all the time. You know, I'm getting this drawing wrong as I'm doing it, but it's just fun. It's fun. I mean, we get paid to draw. I mean, what's better than that? And part of that is, you know, unfortunately, part of that is getting feedback and having to redraw things. And when I worked on Dead End, I had to my first few weeks on that show, I had to basically get all the body templates right, which is kind of boring to tell you the truth. Like the basic templates that were going to be used for the rigs in Toon Boom, and I just had to draw endless turnarounds of these characters, and every time I sent them off, it would be like, can you just tweak this, can you just tweak this, can you just tweak this? And in the end, you know, it was worth it, because I really helped them out by getting those things sorted. That was the first job that they wanted me to do, and it was like, the production can't carry on until you get it sorted, you know. And so when I did that, they were really super grateful for me. They're like, oh Dan, you're amazing, you know, you completely helped us out and smashed the templates, and now we can get onto like the fun designing stuff. And it's like, yeah, fine, great, look, you know, I love to help. It's my job to help you out. You know, it's my job as a character designer to do whatever it is that they want me to do. And as Tom just said, like, the quicker that we can get used to feedback on our work, the better. And it only ultimately improves it. Like, if people give you feedback, and especially if people give you like unsolicited feedback, that's not really cool, I don't think. I think you should always ask for feedback. And I think if people give you feedback and it's not constructive, I think that you have to kind of ignore those people. And I know it's difficult, and try not to get upset by it, because for me, feedback should be constructive. I mean, like, whenever I'm feeding back to students, I try and give them something positive first, because inevitably, like, they've always done something that's great. And then after that, like, I sort of say, like, oh, but how about if we think about changing this? And like, oh, if you think about like making the head a little bit bigger, it'll improve the design because of this, this, and this. Again, going back to proportion. Or, you know, what about why have you made this choice on this character's costume? You know, maybe it'd be better if he or she or whatever wore this instead. Or like, maybe you should do some more research on cowboys to make sure that this costume is going to look authentic. You know, things like that, like little pointers, because it's ultimately, that's all stuff that I've learned from being in the industry. And so whenever I teach at the college, I'm trying to sort of give you all a shortcut to the things that took me years to learn. Like, I wish that I'd had more feedback when I was a student, but it was a different time, not wanting to sound too old.
So, hey, something else I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned before. Oh, you said some really interesting things. You said a great quote earlier. Luck is preparation meets opportunity. Oh, that's wisdom. Love that.
That's wisdom for 10:48 on a Wednesday, isn't it?
Hey, I love that. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you though is you mentioned about the industry kind of wanted to see that you can do what you can do. Yeah. And I know that that's something that's done on the Games Art and Design course at NUA. But are there any similar situations on the animation course at NUA?
Excuse me. I actually ran a project in the first year, which was an emulation of the test I did for Cartoon Network. That was really fun. Because Apple and Onion has aired, I can show artwork from it, which I've done obviously today. And sorry, just 1 second. I'm just going to split my screen up. Really quick tip in Photoshop, if you're a Photoshop user and you want to do something really cool, which I learned from someone and now I do all the time. If you go up to Window, Arrange, and then you go across and you choose the name of your document. So mine is new window for today's date. And then click that. That will open the same document in a different tab on the top. And you think, well, why would you do that? If you go to Window, Arrange, and then if you go to 2 up vertical, which is 4 from the top in the Window Arrange menu, it then stacks them side by side. And what you can do is you can move these windows independently of each other. And so the reason why I do that is because when I'm doing a character, I can have the overview of the character in the left-hand side, a bit like the navigator view here, and I can zoom in on the right, and then I can do the face, you know, detailed, and you can see that it updates the image on the left-hand side here live because it's the same document. It's just a different view of that same document. Just a little tip. I mean, I can go over that later on again if somebody wants to need to do that. Sorry, yeah. So the testing bit, yeah. In the first year, I actually showed them my tests the first years on the animation course that I did for Apple and Onion, and we replicated it. So my test was basically I got them to break down Onion and redraw him, which I know sounds really kind of boring, but it's really important to be able to draw the characters consistently, because like I said, it all has to stay on model. It all has to look like it's been drawn by the same person. So that's teaching them about consistency and taking care and observing and learning how a character's drawn. And then I got them to repose him doing an action, which was part of my test. The brief was to draw him waiting at a bus stop, which sounds really boring, but I wanted them to make him like do it in a really fun way. Because animation is exaggeration, right? That's the whole point. So it's like, I don't just want to see him sitting at the bus stop, I want to see him doing something funny. And then the last thing we did was I got them to do him playing a musical instrument, which was quite fun. So that means that the students had to go and obviously research musical instruments, learn how to draw those and caricature them. And then actually I did one thing, which was, it was Halloween around that time. And as a little fun thing, I wanted them to redesign Onion wearing a Halloween costume. And it could be anything. It could be, it's like you can turn him into a zombie, you can have him be like a mummy, or you can do him like as a, I don't know, as an alien or something, and just try and like have a bit of fun with it like that. So those are the sorts of briefs that we sort of get up to at the college, and it's great because it's like I say, I never really had that sort of thing when I was there, because it was a completely different place. Animation was part of graphics, and so now we're really up on training the students and preparing them for employment, because like I say, that's exactly what I had to do to get that job with Cartoon Network. I had to do a test, and I'd never done one before. Had I done one at college, I would have been used to it and I would have known what to expect, but like I say, it's a different time, Tom. It's just a different time. I'm old. What can we say?
Thank you for that, mate. So I've got a couple of questions that have come in. One of them is quite a quick one. Mm-hmm. What drawing pad do you use or recommend?
Are we talking digital?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. I'm going to be really annoying and recommend the iPad Pro, and that's annoying because it's super expensive. I know that not everybody can afford that. That's obviously the sort of portable one that people use Procreate on, which is a great piece of software. That's only £10 to buy that piece of software, and it's amazing. In terms of what I'm using right now, I'm using a Wacom Cintiq. That's WACON Cintiq. And this is the big 22-inch one. Again, expensive, but it's because I use it for my job, so it needs to be like top of the range stuff. There are alternatives. There's a company called, sorry, 1 second, I'm just going to shrink this lady's body. If only losing weight was so simple, eh, Tom? I could just put a lasso around myself and shrink myself. There's a company called XP Pen, and there's a company called Huion. I believe that Huion are the better of the two. They make more budget-friendly drawing digital tablets, a lot cheaper than the Wacoms. So I'd recommend either of those two. I haven't personally used one, but I've heard good things about them. So maybe try those out if you can't get a Cintiq or something. I mean, these things are really expensive. I mean, they're built to last. I've had this for years, and it's, touch wood, never gone wrong. But it's good that there's a lot of competitors out there that are making cheap alternatives, I think. Right. Okay. I know that time is a going, but yeah. So that's, where are we? So we traced the vase, and then on top of that, we sort of shrunk it down and squashed it up and cut little pieces out of it. And then I used those as the basis for the my design on top. So you can see that things like these things here, look, are what I used to draw her sort of shirt lapels, if you like. This gold band around the middle is her belt. I turned it into that. This sort of curvy shape here I used for the shape of her dress, and I just sort of stuck these feet on the bottom. And then obviously, like, I took this here, you could use that as the head and then put like a hair bun on top. Or in my case, I took this part here and I moved it up. So it was this one here, and then I just drew the head underneath it. If I had more time, I'd sort of tweak this a bit more and change the proportions and things. But I know that time always goes so quickly on these things, doesn't it? I was going to color this in for you, but what we're going to do now is more importantly, we're going to pose this up. So one thing I like to do with this, and also with projects, again, going back to what Tom was saying, is that we try and emulate industry sort of briefs and things on the course, and that's where I come in, because I'm a part-time lecturer and I work in the industry, so I kind of know the sort of jobs, obviously, that we get. One sec. So in this sort of instance, let's say that this is our character design that we designed for a client. We'll call this number 1, and we'll just group these and call them trace. Also remember to save your file. So a lot of students don't do that, and then they lose their work and they get really angry. So Command S, Control S on the PC, file save. What I like to do is, so let's say this is our design, we sent this to an art director, they're like, oh yeah, cool, she looks really great. But we want to see her doing something, right? Because she's not just going to be standing there on the screen talking, facing the camera. So inevitably you get asked to pose the character. A lot of character design is doing pose sheets, model sheets, which is basically taking one character and putting them in different poses for animation or reference. Similar to what I just mentioned about the apple and onion thing, you know, getting the students, the first years, to pose the character after they've drawn it is it doesn't sound like it, but it's a really tough challenge, because you've got to maintain the character's likeness and proportions. You know, you can't be changing the sizes of heads and things and having the character not look like it's supposed to. So this is a good test to do in that sort of situation. So let's pretend that the art director's come back to us and said, right, we love the character, but we want you to make her look like she is really tired and she hasn't like slept for a week. That could be one of the things that they want you to do. Maybe the character in the show is going to be like trudging around the house in the first scene, holding a coffee, looking really tired. So they want to see what that looks like. So let's do that. What's happened here? Ooh. So I'm just going to put her in a tired pose. So the way that I would do that is I would go and find some reference. I would go and find a reference image. I've got one down here on my screen separately, just to save time. I'd go online and find references. I'd Google it. I'd go on Pinterest, or something that everybody forgets, I would use my phone and take a photo of myself, because everyone's got cameras on their phones these days. So rather than spend time, you know, online trying to find the perfect reference photo, I would just, you know, use my front-facing camera and snap a photo of myself doing embarrassing poses. Never show anybody your reference photos. They're nobody wants to see that sort of stuff. Pulling facial expressions and making weird hand gestures, you know. Right, so I'll just pull these guides out just to make sure I sort of get the basic proportions down.
Dan, while you're laying this out, we've got the Padlet board. If anyone would like to show us their progress so far, whilst Dan's still working, then that would be awesome, and we might make reference to that in a few minutes' time to see where you're at with it. But I see that someone's posted on there already. It's really awesome to see. Even your warm-ups, what you've been up to, it's quite interesting.
Cool.
But yeah, back to you.
Yeah, sorry, I definitely, yeah, I know that sharing work is quite sort of scary, but it'd be really awesome to see what everybody's been doing, even if it's, you know, even if you've only got to sort of like an early stage, because I'm working quite quickly, obviously, because we've only got an hour and a half together. But yeah, I'd love to see any of your sort of warm-ups or any of your characters from your objects. That'd be really cool. Right, where are we? Okay, so she's going to be leaning forward. Like, her line of action is really important, I think, because she's going to be sort of bending over because she's really tired, right? So her line of action is going to be kind of like bending forward like that. Her head's going to be over here. So let's put her neck up here and have her head kind of here. Again, like going back to what I was doing earlier on with my warm-up, like starting the head with a circle, with a sort of wedge shape coming off it. So she's bending over, her hair is kind of up here roughly. And this is another important thing, like when you're laying out poses and things, don't go in with the face, because that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, and it's something that I used to do as well. Like everybody wants to draw the face first, and everybody wants to kind of you know, get the eyes drawn in and all that sort of stuff. But going back to the warm-up, you know, like building the character out of shapes and things is really super handy, and something that I needed somebody to show me to do first. It was like, don't try and draw the complete character and the pose at the same time. That's too much for you to think about. Do a rough pose first and then do the details afterwards, because you'd be surprised how much time that will save you in the long run. Because if you're anything like me, you'll keep changing the pose all the time as well. I'm just going to flip my canvas. That's a really good tip to do if you are working digitally. If you go to image, this is in Photoshop, you can do it in Procreate as well. Image rotation. Then if you go to flip canvas horizontal, I've got it mapped to a hotkey, but you can flip it, and then that will refresh your eyes really quickly. So it's kind of a good hack for your own brain. Really good on faces. Like, we all tend to draw one eye bigger than the other just by accident. And if you flip the canvas, so that's image rotation, flip canvas horizontal again, you'll instantly see the mistakes. Because I'm sure that we've all been in that situation where, you know, we draw something and we think it's really super awesome, and then we look at it the next day and then we think, oh my god, that hand is like ridiculously wrong, or that you know, that eye is too big, or you know, all that sort of thing. So, and that's what happens. You know, your eyes kind of get used to seeing stuff. You know, when you're drawing things, you get so used to things that you're looking at so quickly, you miss the mistakes. So that's
thank you so much for that. I love that little hack. It's so handy.
Yeah.
And that's not just for animation. That is any form of artwork that you're making. It's a really useful thing to do if you can. Something I just wanted to mention as well, for those of you that may not have used Padlet before, on the Padlet board that we've popped on the chat, there's also a QR code on the screen. So when you click on that link, you'll see a QR code on the screen. You could either use your phone and just scan that QR code and it'll open up the page. And then with the little plus symbol, the pink plus symbol in the bottom right corner, you can upload your files by simply clicking on that and then sourcing your files and then popping them on there. I'm approving a bunch of them in the background. Guys, these are really exciting designs that you've got coming together. So thank you so much. And we'll make a reference to this towards the end of the session. Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what people have been doing, because I can't see it at the moment. So just a little quick thing. Reference is key, right? And reference is something that people don't want to admit to using for some reason, because I think that it's become like an art myth that like only true artists draw everything out of their head, right? And nobody uses reference, because if you're a proper artist, then you don't need it, and that's a load of rubbish, total rubbish. Okay, you know, the example that I always use is like, we all know what a car looks like, but if you ask me to draw a car right now, I can't draw one that's photoreal, or I can't draw one that looks amazingly like a car, because like my memory isn't great. I have to look at a picture of a car to be able to draw one, you know, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. So, but you can use references in different ways. Like, you know, you see these sort of little plant things on this vase that I've got here, you know. I decided to turn that into like a tattoo sleeve on this character, you know, so I'm taking these shapes because they reminded me of some of the tattoos that I've seen of my friends and online and stuff. So this lady's going to be like sort of alternative gal, and she's going to have these sort of birds and this kind of like you know, vines and things on her arm, and that just gives a little bit of extra, you know, realism to a character. It's remember that when we're drawing people like this, the whole key to character design is to draw things that people can relate to, because if you're watching a movie or a TV show and you can't relate to the character in any way, then it's a lot more difficult to sort of get into the story. So it's important as character designers to observe people in real life and take the things that we see and use them in our artwork and in our designs. So you know, like the color palette and things like this, or the flowers, I've taken them and putting that on her dress as a design. Sorry, Tom. So no, sorry to interrupt. We've had a few questions. Yeah. I love this latest one. Keep them coming, by the way, folks. It's really cool to see what you're thinking. Were there any cartoons that you got into drawing when you were younger, Dan? Yeah, Tom's heard this answer quite a lot. Like I learned to draw by copying Garfield. If you know who Garfield is, he was this fat orange cat that loves lasagna, very big in the 80s. That shows you how old I am. And I used to copy him. That's how I learned to draw. Like I could probably still draw Garfield now from memory, because I've drawn him so many times. That's how much I used to draw him. And I used to draw a lot of Disney stuff too. And I remember when I was a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons and watching like Tasmania and stuff, and Tiny Toons and things, and like drawing as I was watching them on the TV, like, you know, copying the way that the eyes were drawn, and I drew a lot of stuff from Nickelodeon, like, you know, like Ren and Stimpy and Rocco's Modern Life. I used to love that show when I was a kid. That was more 90s. And I think that brings up a good point. Like, it's important to copy. Again, like another taboo thing to say, like, you told us not to copy anybody's work earlier, Dan, what are you talking about? But I'm talking about copying as a study aid, right? Some of the projects that we get the students to do anyway is studying a style, for like getting them to design a character, but in the style of, I don't know, Over the Garden Wall or something. Or I got the second years to design a prop for Gravity Falls, which meant looking at artwork from those shows and copying it and trying to learn how they get drawn. Because again, you know, the job is to emulate, to be able to join a production and to draw in that style. Like, one of the pitfalls that people fall into is that they only want to draw in their own style, and they think that, and that's fine, you know, especially if you're doing your own thing, like your own show or your own comic book or whatever. But if you want to work in the industry, you have to be able to draw like other people, and that unfortunately, you know, means learning lots of different styles. Like, you can't join The Simpsons and draw Homer differently. Do you know what I mean? It sounds really obvious, but yeah, I can't remember the question. Sorry.
No, the question was, and you answered it wonderfully before embellishing. Ultimately, it was Garfield.
Okay. yeah, Garfield.
Okay.
Sorry.
So hey, I've got a couple more questions, Dan. Any advice on what to include in your portfolio? Dan, can I jump on this question just for a moment?
Go for it. Yeah.
So portfolios anyway are useful for the vast majority of our courses. Before we go into the specifics on what to include for an animation portfolio, we're looking for 3 key things in particular. We're wanting to see the influences on your work. We also want to see your ideas development, to how you started off with an initial brief through to a final outcome. And we also want to see your technical ability. So like we're doing now, but it might be a variety of making processes that are relevant to the subject that you're interested. So Dan, I've kind of given the headlines in terms of the classic things that we like to see there, but how would you go into more detail on that and what you like to see in an animation portfolio?
I can only sort of speak to character design portfolios / visual development, which is kind of similar. In my experience, having gone to conventions and things like that, it's very similar to what Tom said. Like, but a lot of people, well, I think it's important to have life drawing in there, especially if you're a character designer, because you know, we draw people at the end of the day, and we draw animals and characters, and drawing from life is a big skill that studios still want to see. So, you know, I teach life drawing at anyway as well. I think it's really important for everybody to be able to draw people, regardless of their sort of the discipline. So I put that in my portfolio. Being able to, like Tom said, like demonstrate that you can generate multiple ideas and iterations. Because again, as a character designer, you know, your job is to create ideas and, you know, give the art director 10, 15, 20 options rather than, you know, 1 or 2. Ultimately, obviously, only one gets picked, but part of the process is that, you know, it has to be whittled down from lots of different designs. So I want to see that. One of the things that I did for my first portfolio that I took to CTNX Expo was I did a personal project, and I think that those can be really good in a character design portfolio. And by personal project, I mean something that you want to take under your own steam, and a good one to show off your skills. A good one that I did was, a good one for a designer or a biz dev artist is taking a book or a fairy tale or a story and putting it in a different time period, and mixing up. So for example, I did Jack and the Beanstalk, but I put it in like samurai era Japan, and I changed Jack to be a girl instead of a boy. And the giant, I turned into like a Japanese ogre, right? And Jack climbed a bamboo stalk rather than a beanstalk. Same story, but I transpose it to a different culture. And that's great because it serves 2 purposes. One, it shows that you can, you know, come up with a creative idea and you can rethink and retell a popular story, which is, you know, let's face it, what Disney used to do. They always used to do fairy tales. And it shows that you can generate designs because I designed all the characters and all the cast. And I put all that sort of working into my portfolio, all my sort of character sheets and things. It shows that you can do props and stuff, because I designed props for the characters and a few sort of environments, even though I'm not an environment guy. It shows that you can do research, which is a massive part of the job. And the benefit of that is that you, as an artist, you get to learn about all these different like cool different cultures and stuff. That's one of the kind of indirect benefits, I think, of this job, is that because you do so much research about things, you learn so much cool stuff, and that's inspiring. Like, you can't create a believable world or a genuine, you know, story or emotional experience for the audience if it's just surface level detail, right? You know, there's a reason why Pixar artists go on holiday to go on like studio visits to Mexico for Coco, you know, or why Disney artists all went to Finland before they started to design Frozen. It's so that they can immerse themselves in those environments and put that into their work. So that's one skill that, you know, doing a personal project will show in your portfolio. Yeah, drawing from life, so animals, people, buildings. What else? Obviously, any examples of like professional work you've done. I mean, that's not always true for people. Like, I always, one general thing about portfolios as well is that you should always look forward to updating them. Like one trap that people fall into with portfolios is that they think that like they have to make one and then that's it. Like, you know, I've done my portfolio, I never have to change it again. And the whole point of a portfolio is that it's like it's a changeable thing. It's a current reflection of your skills, and it's really important not to just put in the work that you like and not getting rid of stuff in there because you're like, oh, I still really like that drawing. It's like, does it accurately reflect where you are at the moment as an artist? Like, if you've improved, then I would say take it out. Like, there's lots of stuff that I've had in my portfolios over the years that I still like to this day, but technically they're not as well done as something that I can do now. And my tastes have changed as well. So, you know, as much as it pains me, I take stuff like that out of my portfolio because I don't want clients to see it, you know. And one other general tip is to only put work in your portfolio, which is the kind of work that you want to do. And I know that that sounds really obvious, but some people they get trapped. Like, they'll put stuff in their portfolio in just because they think, oh, I should put this in because everybody tells me to. And then what happens is that a client sees that work, the thing that you're probably not that hot on doing, and then that's what they hire you for, and then you get trapped doing that for 6 months. You know, and I'm not saying that you can't be that you shouldn't put in stuff like that to get jobs, but just be aware that it can have a different effect, you know, and you can get caught.
I think that's a really interesting point, Dan, because a portfolio for industry is kind of different to a portfolio for university as well. So, for example, for a portfolio for university, we want to see where your influences and ideas have come from. We want to see the evolution of that process. We want to see how you've made decisions along the way. We want to see the things that you're maybe not quite as confident at, but we want to see how you've taken a creative risk in a way. But for industry, you wouldn't be looking to see that. You'd want to see more kind of final outcomes, a variety, a repertoire, what you're passionate about. Well,
to be honest, like just to sort of pull you up on that, it depends on the job. Like, and interestingly, like, you would think that, but when I was at CTNX one year, I spoke to Diana Marzigliese, who's a character designer for Pixar. She designed like everything in Luca, basically. She's amazing. And I asked her about portfolios. I was like, oh, do you guys prefer to see like finished stuff or sketches and things? And she's like, always sketches. We always want to see sketches. They want to see ideas. They want to see roughs, and they want to see the final as well. But they're more interested in the rough stuff and the sketches and the doodles, and they want to see she said, like, they want to see us like thinking on the page. And that's
nice. That's really nice.
Yeah. So it is tempting to think that portfolios for industry have to be these big polished things. And sometimes they are. Like, the way that I get around that is that I have sections on my website that it's client work that I've done before. So that is the polished stuff. That's the stuff I was showing in my presentation, the finished article, to say I can do this. But I also have stuff on there, or I have shown stuff in my hard copy portfolios, which is just sketches, which is iteration, which is 20 ideas for a character's face. You know, I did one year, which was I took like Willy Wonka and redesigned him, and my page in my portfolio was the final design on the right, and then like 10 alternative heads on the left to show that I could do that. You know,
No,
if I'd just put the final in, then they would have been like, well, you could do the final, but we'll want to see your ideas, you know.
Yeah, that's really useful to know. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, I didn't mean to undercut your point there, Tom. I was just
Can't believe you did that.
I'm really sorry.
No, that's all right. No, it's really useful.
Right. We're kind of we're heading towards the done stage in a minute. I know that we want to look at the Padlet. I'm just going to quickly colour this while do you want to ask me some more questions if you've got any while I'm doing that?
Yeah, I'm just going through the questions that have been asked. I think we've answered most of them. Apologies, guys, if I've missed some of your questions, but do keep them coming. For now, Dan, I think we're on top of it.
Okay. I mean, I just want to sort of go back to something that somebody said earlier on. I think it's really important, which is that don't let your fear of drawing or your own perceived lack of skill or readiness, let's say, stop you from taking risks and stop you from like just doing it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've not drawn, and just in case I made a mistake or just in case what I did wasn't great. And like I said earlier on, like we learn from mistakes, right? And it's always better to take a chance on stuff. And excuse me, and that goes back to the Cartoon Network job. Like, you know, I saw that job. Well, first of all, like the way that I got that job was that I went on the Cartoon Network website, and they've got a section on there which is basically like ad hoc applications. So it was like, oh, if we don't have anything, you know, you can still send us your work and we'll get back to you if something comes up. And I did that. And then like 2 days later, they emailed me and said, oh, we've got the show Apple and Onion. Do you want to test for it? And that might be like anecdotal, but it's you know, at the time I was like, oh, I'm never going to get this job. Like, you know, I don't think I'm ready for this. You know, I'd love to work for Cartoon Network, but I don't know what business do I have applying, right? And in the end, I just thought, well, you know, what's that saying? You lose 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? Which I think is an ice hockey quote, but it pertains to art as well. And it's like, if I applied for that job and I didn't get it, so what? At least I applied. But I did apply, and they did email me, and that gave me such a boost, you know. And this was at a time when I wasn't sure if I was ever going to be able to get a job in the industry. Certainly not at a studio like that, and on a show that was going to get actually shown on TV. And that was a great experience, you know, just knowing that I actually did have what it took, and but it just took that moment of sort of courage, I guess, of just being like, no, I am going to try and do this, and I am going to give it a go, and I won't tell anybody about it. And if nothing happens, nothing happens. But you know, if I don't go for this, then I'll probably regret it, right? It's just a little thing about it. If anybody out there is not feeling sort of confident in their work and stuff, and also know that this sort of stuff takes time. It's, you know, you see those people online that are always, I mean, social media is such a double-edged sword, because you know what it's like on Instagram, especially. Like, you only ever see people's successes, and you only ever see the people that are like, oh, I just got employed at this studio and I've got into Cal Arts and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but you don't see the 5 years of struggle that got them there. And you don't see the, all the times that they doubted their own work, and all the times that they got like maybe a critique that made them feel really terrible, and the times when they didn't feel like drawing and they had art block for 6 months. And, you know, that's all part, and that kind of turns us into the kind of artists that we are. You know, I think that, to be honest, like if I could go back and have my time again, I wouldn't change it, because not getting into the industry immediately taught me resilience, and it taught me to just keep going and keep pushing, and like, how much do I really want this? And I wanted it enough to push through all of the rejections and all of the, you know, and to build my skills up. And like, you know, I look at my art now and it's like, I'm nowhere near the artist that I want to be, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop drawing. Do you know what I mean?
No, thank you for that. So the next question, one that I missed, but we've had it kind of repeated, which is great. So thank you for that. And it ties in with kind of what you've been saying just now. How do you get over perfectionism and also kind of getting creative blocks as well? It's a slightly different issue, but they're kind of similar at the same time. So how do you get over perfectionism and creative blocks?
Well, I think in both cases, they both have the same answer, which is like, just try and be okay with being a human being, right? I don't know, that sounds really silly, but we can't, you know, we're not machines at the end of the day. And like, I just said, you know, I'm just going to contradict my own advice. Like, I was like, oh, draw all the time, don't stop drawing. But some days you just don't want to draw, you know? Some days you just don't feel like it, and that's cool. And I'd much rather if there was a day like that, I'd much rather go and do something else. And that ties into the other thing. It's like when you get art block, the best thing to do is do something different. And like, if you try and force yourself to do it, then you'll end up hating it, and nobody wants to end up hating something like this, which is, you know, such a blessing to be able to do. And I think that it's important to still do something like creative if you can. Like my friend Amy that I mentioned, the one who got the SpongeBob job, she had some art block, and she's now she learned how to press flowers, you know, still kind of creative, and that's something that she really loves, and it takes her mind off art and it helps her recharge. It gives her another creative outlet. You know, I sometimes build models. I'm learning how to paint, which takes me away from the computer, and I mean like paint with actual paint, like gouache paint, which I'm terrible at. And that's really good because that'll show you, that'll make you humble as well. Like there's nothing like trying a new medium if you're okay at like digital or something, to make you suddenly realize, oh man, yeah, art is hard, and that's okay, and I'm just gonna have to learn this. And I think sorry. No, you go.
I was just going to say, is there anything in the company that you keep as well? You've mentioned some of your friends that you work with, but do they make much of a difference to you in terms of encouragement and motivation? And I know you've spoken about your dad before as well when it comes to inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm really lucky because I've got very sort of encouraging parents. Like my dad was a freelance architect for many years, but he used to paint watercolors, watercolor birds. So I guess that's kind of where my creativity comes from. And I think it's important to try and, if you don't have that, because not everybody has that, try and build, it is all about friends in this industry. Like it is a small industry. And a lot of the friends that I have made and that I have, you know, we all do different things. I know obviously some other character designers. My friend Paul is a character designer. He worked on the Mr. Bean TV show. Amy is a background designer. My other friend Claire is a background designer. She works in Ireland for a company called Boulder Media. You know, I know some painters and things, and you know, it's good because you can all recommend each other for jobs, which is great because it builds yourself a little sort of network of potential employment. You know, you can recommend each other for things. So sometimes when a job has come up and I've not been able to do it, I've recommended my friend Paul for it. You know, he recommended me for the Netflix thing, and I recommended him for something else, and we both got employed out of it, which is great. And I think, and you keep each other motivated as well. Like going back to Amy again, she had a really tough time recently because she'd applied to Disney, and it's like her dream to work for Disney, like ever since she's been a little girl. And she got so close, she got interviewed, and then in the end they just went with somebody else who lived in America, sadly. And she got really not depressed about it, but she got really upset by it. And I sort of talked to her, you know, I sent her a message on Instagram and gave her a little call and was like, look, you know that you built her up, you know that you're great. You've had all these jobs for these companies before, you know, you've worked on Moomins, you've worked on Mr. Bean, you've worked on this, and it's just sometimes it's just the way it goes, you know. Sometimes these jobs, you know, they go up on these websites and you apply for them and you know, they just go with somebody else, and that's ties back to the whole rejection thing, and that's just part of it too. Like I've had so many jobs that I've interviewed, not even interviewed for, I've applied for and just never heard anything back, and that's always really upsetting. Like not even to hear back, but you just got to kind of chalk it up to experiencing and get on with it, you know, and then apply for the next job. It's a lot of resilience, but it's definitely worth it.
Thank you for that. Dan, just to let you know, we have 7 minutes left in this session.
Just finished.
Excellent.
It's very rough, obviously. But like I say, so we went taking this front design, excuse me, using everything from our reference here, shape language, a little bit of proportion as well. Like this is her upper body, belt line, maybe this sort of proportion for the main skirt part. Going back to that question I had earlier about proportion, big, little, and small. So we've got small for the head, medium for the body, big for the legs, right? So that's a good idea. Thinking about proportion, looking at objects. And then we basically we posed her up really roughly, looked at the line of action. She's drinking her coffee, she's really tired. That was the note from the art director. They wanted to see us posing the character. And then I just chucked some color on top, which you can see I got from the vase. So I don't have to use their colors, but it's a good starting point. So I might send that to the art director, and then they'll come back and go, can you make a dress orange? And then I'll just do that, send it back. Can you make it pink? Send it back again. It's like playing tennis sometimes. Yes, anyway, sorry, that's, should we go to the Padlet?
Yes, mate, that sounds like a good idea. So I'm going to invite Katie. I've put Katie on the spot totally in the background and asked her if she might be able to share her page, her Padlet board page.
Yeah. I'll stop my screen then.
Yeah, if not, then I'll share it.
Okay, cool. I'll stop mine. There we go.
Cool.
You should be able to. Let me give it a shot.
Someone's asked me what software I'm using. It was Photoshop, by the way. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Yeah, cool.
Guys, these are awesome.
I love the Thai chef, and the wood burner chicken is great.
That's something that's quite important, right? Just getting these emotional reactions straight off the bat is so key, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like that goes back to what I said. Like you have to relate to the character, right? And I always find that if you can have an immediate reaction, like it makes you smile or it makes you sad or something, like that's a good indicator that you're on the right track. So if you don't have an emotional connection to what you've drawn, then like how can you expect somebody else to? You know?
Yeah. And Katie, are you all right to scroll down just to give us a sense of what's been going on?
Oh, someone's drawn their headphones as a character. That's a good idea.
Cool. I love that instrument in the bottom left there and how that's been taken into a character, and they've thought really about the posture. That's incredible. That's another good
thing to do as well. Like you can, the vase and all these shapes, you can just you can obviously you don't have to use the whole shape. You can cut into them like this person's done, and just take little parts of it and then use it as the pose. Like the hand up there like that is great. Like really good pose that is. Using the object as a springboard, right? And that one on the right, the wood burner with like the guy with the smoke coming out of his head as like the backpack and stuff. That's really great. And the color.
That's so cool because it kind of tells a story of that guy as well. Has he got like a bionic leg?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it's like I want to find out about this guy now. It's like I think that costume and stuff is really underused as a design tool. I think that it's important, and something that we teach on the course is that all the props and everything that a character has, like it has to tell a story for the character. It can't just be, oh, they've got a backpack. It's like, okay, yeah, but how old is the backpack? Like what's kept in it? Has it been repaired? Is it in good condition? Is it dirty? What color is it? What's it made from? Because all that stuff can reflect the personality of the character. Like if it's an old Hessian sack that's been patched up, they're obviously not a very rich character. So they probably come from a poor background. So they probably had a really interesting upbringing, right? So when I'm encouraging the students to design props and things, it's always like, think about the story behind the prop,
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan, we're just going to have to start wrapping things up, but can you tell us about Domestika, the Domestika course?
Yeah, sure. Oh, and also someone said, can we add our work later? It's like, yeah, I believe that they can.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We're going to have this Padlet board open. We're going to also add it to a worksheet that we're going to produce for those that haven't been able to make the session, and we'll have it as a reference point on there. So yeah, feel free to add it a bit later. And we're also potentially going to use your work. If you'd like to take your work down, then let us know if you don't want it to be used for a reference point on our worksheet that's going to be published within the next few weeks.
And also, it's nice to sort of leave comments on each other's designs as well, and like sort of, like I said, like build that community and that network. So if you want to like comment on each other's stuff, and because it's all really great stuff, then that's always nice to read, right? A nice comment from somebody else about your work. Tom just mentioned my Domestika course, which is on the screen there. It's where the pointer is. Very quickly, I recorded that about a year ago. It's all about developing your own style, because that's a lot of the questions I get from people, like, how do I find my style? And for me, style is a mixture of your own personal tastes and your own skills, the artists that you're looking at, and the little tips and tricks that you pick up from, again, like copying other people's work as a study aid, not copying it and then like using it, pretending it's yours. So I don't know, we talked about Garfield earlier on, right? It's like, oh, I learned to draw funny little stubby cartoon hands from drawing Garfield, so I can put that into my style and change it up a bit and make it my own. On the course, we cover lots of character design fundamentals to start with. There's 8 hours of content. It basically shows you how to break down a reference, a human reference, an animal reference, shows you how to pose, teaches you about line of action, proportion, shape, silhouette. And then I teach you how to write a personal brief for a character, and then it shows the whole process of designing it from brief to final outcome. So I take you through sketching and research and mood boards, creating ideas, designing different heads and hairstyles, designing costumes, posing the character, and then I finish the line drawing in Photoshop, and then I take it to Procreate and I color it in Procreate, because I've got this funny like sort of abstract way that I color characters sometimes. So it goes between the two softwares, and that's a course on Domestika. Like I say, it's got a lot of assignments for you to do. There's a forum that you can post your work to that I can give you like feedback on if you want. And yeah, it's just a good time. So if you want to learn a bit more about character design, come to NUA, obviously, very first and foremost, learn from me and learn from John and our other great tutors, and then also supplement your knowledge with things like that. Also, very quickly, there's a resources PDF on there, which is the last 3 slides of the presentation that I showed you at the start, which has you know, all the books and things that I showed you on there, and also some external resources you can check out if you want to carry on learning how to draw characters. Yeah.
Well done, mate. Thank you. It's Domestika, then, not Domestika. I made it.
I like the way you said it better.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll try. Dan, thanks so much. That's amazing. Guys, I'm just going to round us up with a few kind of things for you to think about and to be aware of. But Dan, that's been awesome. It's always a pleasure. So thank you so much.
No worries. You're welcome.
So before we finish up today, I want to remind you that we have a range of workshops coming up across our summer school series. So do join us in future weeks for our fashion photography workshop with Kat Gundrybeck. That was awesome last year. She is a sensation. She's a really interesting person. Almost, no, I'm going to say as interesting as Dan. Accessing architecture as well. We've got coming up with Nick Cassidy, one of our graduates. That's awesome. You'll also be able to access these through our recordings. So we'll be sending out the worksheets to those of you that maybe aren't able to come but do sign up for the workshop. All of our workshops are designed to give you an insight of the different ways you could take your creativity and the different jobs that exist in these areas as well. So Katie, hopefully, just to put you on the spot again, Katie, has got some links that she's going to pop into the chat now. So the latest one's going to be to our Creative Career Path booklet. And also there's a link through, in addition to the rest of our summer school series. So if you do want to join us, then you should be able to book through our website. You can also get hold of a certificate through submitting 3 outcomes to us via email. So that will be to our email address, which is student.recruitment@nua.ac.uk. If you send us 3 of your submissions from different workshops, we will then send you an online certificate of attendance, which looks great in a personal statement or a portfolio as well, to make reference to in the personal statement. Then that could be really useful for you. If you do send us outcomes, we will potentially use them in our promotional materials. So do be aware of that. So also, we really want to see what you're making. So we'd also love to see it, not just on the Padlet board, but if you'd like to share it with us on Instagram. We have our channels on @NUA Outreach and also @TakeYourPlaceHE. We'll be popping those into the chat as well. And we'll be sharing some of our favorites throughout the series. Each week, we'll give you the chance to win a Chili's bottle. So all you need to do to win an official NUA Chili's bottle is to basically submit a feedback form to us to let us know how this session went. What's been great, what could be more useful for future. We'd love to hear from you. So we'll be sending you a link to our feedback form, and we'd love to hear your views. So to close, other than that, Dan, thanks so much again for running the workshop today. You're my hero, one of my heroes as ever.
You're my hero, Tom. I'm the hero that everybody needs. And everybody who attended and is in the chat is a hero as well. So go and draw and make good stuff. And we'd love to see like all your stuff on Padlet, and yeah, definitely. Just share it all. We'd love to see it. Get drawing.
Yes, we do. I agree with that. So yeah, hope to see you again. Other than that, I'm going to end the session now. Thanks so much, Katie, as well, for helping out in the background. Really appreciate that. And yeah, hopefully see you again in a future workshop. Cheers. Ta-da. Have a lovely day.
Cheers, guys.